Hello to everybody at home and hello to everybody here. My name is Jackie Carlin. I'm the Community Education Director here at the Center for Health and Wellbeing. Welcome to Food is Medicine. We do these once a month. There are really fun hybrid classes where the lucky folks in this room are going to get to eat everything Allison creates, and those folks at home can watch along and ask your questions in the chat, and I will pass them along to Allison and our soon-to-arrive expert, Dr. George Guthrie. He will be here in a few moments, so once he arrives, I'll give him a proper introduction. But this is, many of you have taken Allison's classes before, but if you haven't, you are in for a very great treat. She was just talking to our audience in here. Allison is a registered nutritionist, yes, and a culinary medicine specialist, and she's a plant-forward dietitian, and she's certified to be a plant-based chef, but this class is all vegan, correct?
Yes, all vegan
And really what we love to do with these classes is show that it's doable, it's delicious, most importantly, and it's a fun thing to do. So Allison will get started in just a moment, tell you everything she's going to make. You all have the recipes in here, and to the folks at home, I'm going to drop the link in the chat in just a minute with all the recipes she'll be preparing. And everybody here should know afterwards, we're going to send you all a link to this full recording. So if you need to watch something again, a method or technique, that she did, or share it with your friends. If you're so inspired after this and you want to send it to a friend, feel free to send that link around and you guys can watch these recipes again. Be sure to sign up for some more upcoming classes. Allison will be back in September we're going to do a really different class, a fun class, Cooking for Prostate Health. Sign-ups are low because we know our men don't think they need to come in and learn things. So we're saying if you have a men in your life that you want to help them with their prostate health, come as well. But it's going to be a really fun class. And even if it's just good food, anybody is welcome to come, whether you have a prostate or not.
Right.
And she's also going to be doing a class later in September, Foods to Improve Your Mood. Oh, I see Dr. Guthrie coming in. So
here he is.
But welcome, Dr. Guthrie.
Hello.
This is live. I'm going to send you over to Tiffany, who's going to put a microphone on you. So while he's getting his microphone on, I'm going to let Allison tell everybody what she's going to be preparing today, and then we'll introduce Dr. Guthrie in just a moment. So welcome, everybody.
Hello, I'm Allison, and today we are going to be making a easy miso soup. And it's going to have some tofu in it. And here we have our chocolate chip cookie dough dip, which is one of my favorites. And we're going to have some apple slices and graham crackers with that. And we are going to be featuring one of Dr. Guthrie's recipes from his book, Eat Plants, Feel Whole. It's an Asian cucumber salad. So that's what we are going to be making. And I first need to prepare the tofu. And how many of you have cooked with tofu before? Okay, the vegans I know for sure have, and you have as well. So tofu comes in a lot of different forms, and you can get silken, which is great for smoothies or mousses and things like that, or you can get firm and extra firm. For this recipe, I'm using extra firm tofu, and what you like to do is get all the moisture out and press it. So you can get a fancy tofu press, and I am the queen of kitchen gadgets, and I don't have one. I can't believe it, so I need to add it to my repertoire. But you can actually just wrap it up in a clean dish towel, put it between two plates, and put something heavy on it, okay? So that's just gonna get all the excess moisture out, and I am going to slice this up into cubes, put it on my parchment paper, and put it in the oven with half of the mushrooms to roast. And then as we're building the soup, and then that will go in the soup, okay?
Now is a good time to come on over.
Come in
come on over, Dr. Guthrie.
Hear more about you.
Well, welcome. Let me just give a quick introduction to Dr. George Guthrie, everybody. So Dr. George Guthrie is a family medicine physician with AdventHealth. As Allison just mentioned, he's also the author of the book Eat Plants, Feel Whole Journal. He's also the past president of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. So wow. I know, you're impressive, aren't you?
Very.
And I know we've had him in here in the Nutrition Theater before. We're so lucky to have him again. And I think he's going to talk to you today about just how important it is to incorporate these things into your everyday habits. It's not scary to use plants, is it?
No, as a matter of fact, it's really good to use plants.
All right, great.
Yes.
So if you want to say a quick hello to everybody, we're kind of jumping in here. You guys are seeing the sausage that's made because he's a very busy man. So if you just want to, while Allison will get started with her first recipe, if you just want to kind of share your big picture thoughts of when you became passionate about an eating style like this and what you've seen in your practice with your patients.
So it's been 30 years now, I think, since I went back to school to do a Master's of Public Health in Nutrition. I got interested in nutrition as a family doctor when I had a patient that showed up in my office with diabetes, hypertension, heart disease. You're going to make me louder. I'd like to say I graduated from college cum loudly. Isn't that a degree of some kind? I don't remember.
It's flipping back out. Keep talking. Sorry, I'll just keep talking.
Okay. And this a gentleman, when I encouraged him to move to a plant-based diet and begin exercising, turned his diabetes upside down, made it go away, normal blood sugars. I remember a year after I started that first appointment with him, I said, "How did it go?" Well, Doc, he said, "I've done well. He's down 60 pounds. His blood pressure was normal. His blood sugars were normal. His cholesterol was normal by numbers in those days. It's been quite a while. Things have changed." And it's the first time I'd ever thought that maybe these things could actually be reversed with lifestyle changes. And it completely changed my focus. Having had that happen to me, I went back to school to try to figure out and learn what could actually be done from a nutrition standpoint.
At that time, were you vegan?
I was not.
Okay, so he convinced you, kind of.
I wouldn't say that because I didn't tell him necessarily to become a vegan. What I told him was he had to eat a lot of plants.
Okay.
And we dealt with several other lifestyle components. But when I had been taught that these diseases are not reversible, to actually see it happen, that was pretty amazing. And when I went back to school, that gave me an opportunity to actually study the science. And anybody who's done any graduate work knows there's always papers to write. And since I was interested in this, I went back and got his medical records and incorporated his story into some of the papers that I was doing. And indeed, that's become the focus of my life. The leaving away of animal products came, no one told me to do it. I just kept running across literature and evidence, and I said, you know, I really don't need that. Animal proteins tend to raise cholesterol. We think it's the fats, but there's good argument to be made that it may actually be the protein that's doing it. One of the colleagues I worked with at the university was a protein researcher, and he looked at trying to find the difference between the proteins, because you could observe the difference but couldn't figure out why. And indeed, the best he could come up with was a ratio of a couple of amino acids, arginine and glycine, and that was the closest correlation, but there was no mechanism that they could actually explain it with. So what I've told people who come into the office, encourage them toward eating more plants, because there's so much healing within them. The antioxidants, the fiber, the magnesium, the potassium. Most people don't know. 80% of people over 65 are not getting the RDA of magnesium every day. This is from the NHANES data, so the National Data Bank on Nutrition for the Population. People aren't getting enough magnesium. Does anybody know where magnesium comes from? Sure, in high school, didn't you take biology?
Bigger on metaphors.
Okay. Well, you know, in the greens, you have this thing called chlorophyll, which is really similar to hemoglobin. That is, it's kind of a bunch of carbons and hydrogens and stuff around a central molecule. In hemoglobin, that is iron. In chlorophyll, it's magnesium. So we're not getting enough magnesium because we're not eating enough plants. In essence, greens and beans tend to be high in magnesium. Now, here's another one. People who eat the standard American diet are not getting enough potassium. And the data tells us that if I remember, it's 97 or 98% of Americans are not getting the recommended daily allowance of potassium. So where does potassium come from? We tend to say bananas. That's the first thing that comes up. The doctors all know this. 1 inch of a banana is 1 milliequivalent of potassium. So you eat bananas. But do you know beans have 3 times as much? Yeah. So it's really throughout the plant kingdom. Plants tend to specialize in potassium clear across the spectrum. Another thing that we miss when we focus on animal products is fiber. Fiber is a really powerful tool in our bodies.
10 minutes.
Some of you have probably heard this story before, this explanation before. Fiber I call it fabulous fiber, and I want to make you a fiber fanatic. Try to get as much of this stuff in as you can. So when you take the fiber in, number one, it swells up, so it makes you feel full before you get all those extra calories in. And in the standard American diet, we're just getting a lot of highly refined foods. So you can put stuff in your stomach that does not have calories, but yet fills you up. So now that may sound like excess, and as we, over the last 40 or 50 years, as the federal government has tried to guide industry, they've tried to make food last longer and make sure everybody gets enough calories. Was anybody around when we were worried about feeding the world? Is there going to be enough? Are we going to be able to do it? The population is growing. I know my senior seminar, when I was doing my undergraduate year degree in biology, we had a big argument over that. And I was on the side, I was assigned the side that said, yes, we can do this. Okay. Well, they tried to move the calories, get the calories through. And when you remove fiber, you also tend to remove the omega-3 and omega-6 oils from whatever it may be, the grain in particular. When you do that, you're actually decreasing the quality of the food. You're removing the fiber. The omega-3, omega-6 oils tend to get rancid quite quickly, so it lowers the shelf life of food and products. So that was kind of the reason for that. But now we're missing those things from our diet, and we had no idea how important it was. So physical barrier, number one. Number two, it slows the carbohydrates from going into your bloodstream. And when carbohydrates go in fast, they raise the insulin level. And insulin tends to make our weight go up, and it tends to make our cholesterol go up. Insulin drives cholesterol and LDL production, and tends to lower the HDL. So, trying to keep that down with the increased fiber is good. Now, that fiber also runs through to your colon, and in the colon, that fiber is chewed on by your microbiome. Have you heard of that? The bacteria in your gut. The good bacteria chew on fiber, and they make things that decrease our appetite, turn our cholesterol production down, help with our mood. I mean, it is absolutely incredible the more we learn about it. We're missing our fiber, okay? There's even a little substance that they make called propionate that goes to your brain and says, you're really not as hungry as you thought you were. I'm calling it the poor man's Ozempic. Okay, because it's just then part of your food.
Ozempic.
What's that?
The smart man's Ozempic.
I like that even better.
I like that better. Use food.
But Ozempic's expensive.
It is. It is.
Yeah, that's right.
And if you can do it with food, let's do it with food.
That's true. That's true.
Are you saying that animal protein drives the higher cholesterol?
Yes, and I'm happy to share the kind of the review article with you. Actually, T. Colin Campbell, who's a lifelong nutritionist, wrote the article. He actually emailed it to me because I know him, and he said, hey, I want you to see this, so several years ago. And I think he made a very strong argument that it's probably the protein. So when I encourage people to move towards plant-based eating, I'm not telling them to become vegans. I'm telling them you have to focus on the plant proteins. Better to have a bowl of beans with some ground beef than to have a steak. That would be a mistake, and I'm sorry my humor is pretty sick, okay? I will also point out that not all beans look like beans, and right now we have some tofu in the oven, and tofu is really minimally processed beans, right? So it's just
and we have the miso.
Okay.
So that's soybeans in that as well. Doesn't look like beans, but it's a miso paste.
Allison, can Allison explain where we're at with the recipe real quick, and
Yes.
then we'll hop back in?
Well,
the information's
Okay,
great.
you
No.
Yeah.
Tell me to shut up.
No,
no,
I didn't
no,
want. None of us
today.
wanted to, but
You
I.
put in a quarter and you'll get 50 cents.
No, you're perfect. You're perfect.
So far what I've done is I've taken the vegetable broth, low sodium, and I put it into my saucepan at a medium heat. I'm trying to let it simmer. I've added some green onions, and when you take your green onions, you don't want to throw them out. You could just put them right back in the water or in some soil, and they will sprout again. So you could use them over and over. I have them sitting on my countertop, and they'll go, these are fresh. I use fresh for you guys, okay? But at home, I take all the scraps from these classes, and I grow my own green onions. So that helps reduce some food waste. I use these fancy little scissors. I love these. They are herb scissors. They save you so much time in the kitchen. And one of the big barriers I get when I work with clients one-on-one is they don't like to cook, don't know how to cook, and don't want to take time to cook. So I like to teach people how to make shortcuts to make it easier so you can get healthy food on the table for you and your family. We are using some mushrooms. I'm roasting half of them, and then I'm also putting half not roasted in the soup. I took Napa cabbage, shredded it. I'm going to take it in my salad spinner to clean it off and put that in there. I'm always looking for ways to add more veggies and more fiber into my diet because of what you said. So smart man's Ozempic, okay? So I'm adding in more veggies as much as possible. So if you feel like you're hungry and you need a snack, I always grab for veggies first, okay? This is miso, and it is a blend of soybeans, and it has some rice in here. It's fermented, so this is a fermented food, which is really good for your gut microbiome. And I just added a little bit of water and some sesame seeds, which is also a good source of magnesium in your diet. So that's where I'm at so far. So carry on.
Very good.
Yes. Soup. Yes, I use canned broth. You can make your own. I threw it out. This was Imagine. I bought it from Sprouts. I use a low sodium, but here's a tip. When you're cooking at home, if I'm thinking about less food waste, saving money, because the groceries are ridiculously overpriced now. When you're cooking and you're chopping up different ingredients, you can take like the end of an onion, some carrots, some celery, and whatever you're going to use in a broth, put it in a Ziploc bag and throw that in your freezer. Once the bag is full, then you're going to boil it in some water. And once it's done boiling, let it simmer, and then you strain out all the scraps, and you got your own homemade broth. So I did that, and I saved my old spaghetti jars, the glass jars, and I pour the broth in there and throw it in the freezer. And whenever I need veggie broth, I've got my homemade stuff. So that's what you could do. So, all right.
Very good. It smells good, too.
It smells good.
Noticed. So she pointed out that she's using a low sodium broth. Now, this is an interesting thing that is often missed by many. One of the things that we've been successful about as a medical community from the lifestyle standpoint is getting people to take low salt. But you know you can get your salt intake too low. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, the evidence is now that while you can have increased death and heart attacks and whatnot from too much sodium, you can have increased death from too little as well. It's a U-shaped curve. So
and with this recipe, the reason why I chose low sodium is because the miso's got a lot of sodium in it, and I was thinking this has a little bit, but the miso has a lot. So, okay. And then I like to taste too while I'm cooking, so that does it need more sodium? Because salt brings out a lot of good flavor too, and it's good for your body as well.
I guess I'm trying to say it's not bad.
Right, okay. It's not bad at all, not bad at all.
So we've kind of, some people equate salt with sin, I think. Some people, and I often see this, especially older folks who are really trying to take care of their disease, they get really low in their sodium and they start to cause more problems. So interestingly, the evidence is that it may be mostly the absence of potassium rather than the excess of sodium. Because the ratio, as they study this in populations, it's the sodium-potassium balance that makes more difference than actually the sodium level itself. So most Americans are not getting the recommended daily allowance of potassium. Where do you get potassium?
Greens and beans.
Plants! But greens and beans, yes, magnesium, but there's a lot of potassium in those as well. So that's true. Pretty much across the board. Fruits, vegetables, not so much the grains, but the fruits and vegetables especially have a lot of potassium in them. So go for them.
I have a question. Do you have an opinion on canned beans versus dried beans?
She says, what's my opinion on canned beans versus dry beans? I think you should cook them before you eat them, but the ones in the can are fine. They will often treat those to help decrease the amount of, you know this word flatus? Well, flatus is kind of the medical term for gas, okay? So, and the gas that comes from beans is from a couple of sugars, stachyose and rhabdiose, which hide out in the bean. So if you're cooking them at home, put them in water, bring it to a boil, let it set overnight, pour the water off, add new water, finish your cooking, and you'll, in essence, float off those kind of unusual sugars that tend to cause gas. Okay? So either one is fine. Certainly the ones in the can are quicker. Some people worry about too much sodium in them. If that's a problem for you, wash it off. I personally think there's enough potassium in the beans to overcome any sodium problem, and I like the salt. Yes, ma'am.
What's your opinion about the bad press for chickpeas?
I couldn't hear
Tell
you.
me about
Can
the
you
bad-
repeat it out loud?
Well, she's asking about the bad press that chickpeas have gotten.
I haven't heard bad press. I've heard great press.
Is there heavy metal or something in it? I think there's some heavy metal in it. But that's more contaminant, I think, although that may not be. If it's arsenic, if the chickpeas are grown in soil that had arsenic in it, they will take it up.
They found it in the chickpea pasta. I can't remember the name of the brand.
I'm remembering
Bonza?
that I did.
Bonza pasta? I haven't heard that. So she was saying that she heard some negative press about chickpea pasta. I personally haven't heard that. Have you?
I did see a little news blurb about
Okay.
it, so it's being recalled. They're trying to take it out. No, but it's an important thing to remember. You may have heard about the problem with rice, and it has arsenic in it because cotton fields were moved to rice fields, and they killed the boll weevil with arsenic. So the soil has the arsenic, and the plants that are grown there will pick it up. And I would guess that that's the problem with the garbanzos. You call them garbanzos, right? Chickpeas, no.
Yeah.
So the chickpeas are problems, and just use garbanzos, okay? I think they're the same.
Yes, they are. So it sounds like it's not the actual food item, it's the way it's grown is the problem.
That may be where it's coming from.
Yeah. So,
I'm glad somebody's monitoring that for us. I appreciate that
Yeah.
the government does that for us.
Yeah.
And to help keep our food intake safe.
I'm going to interrupt you guys because I want to show you the tofu. What I did was I just cut it up into cubes. I didn't use any fat or anything on this. I just chopped it up and threw it in the oven and roasted it to make it have like a little bit more tough and not break apart so much. And then I'm going to throw that into our soup and then let it simmer.
The other thing you can do to make it stiffer if you think it's too soft for you is to freeze it first. Because when it thaws, it gets a much chewier texture.
And I love parchment paper because I hate cleaning up. So this is a game changer. So now I'm just going to let this simmer. And I will move on to the famous salad that you have in your cookbook.
Dr. Guthrie, somebody was saying they missed the end of your thought, and if you wouldn't mind repeating, what's the dangers of if you don't get enough salt? Sorry, I know you explained it well.
If you don't get enough salt, you increase your insulin resistance. So blood sugars tend to go up, number one. Number two, it increases vascular tone. So that tends to increase blood pressure. And let's see, the number three, what was the number three? At any rate, it ends up killing people if you don't get enough, okay? So there's increased vascular tone, and there's one other thing, and I'm dropping on it right now.
I was having the issue of not getting the iodine because I was having salt, Himalayan, and all the others. And I think it affected.
So another part of our diet is iodine. I see some seaweed going into
Yes.
this, right?
Uh-huh.
Which tends to have iodine in it. Before the federal government got involved in food processing, there was a lot more goiters thyroid problems.
I'm going to pass
large
this
thyroid
around. Feel free to take a sheet and taste it.
from
'cause it's
not
a good
enough
snack.
iodine. So they solved the problem in this country by asking the salt people to put iodine in. And that has solved our problem quite well. At this point, though, for some reason, people have given regular salt, when it rains, it pours, a bad rap. And so they'll switch to other types of salt, Himalayan salt and others, sea salt, that doesn't have the iodine added. Now, from what I've seen, because I just bought one of these recently, it says does not have iodine. So just so you know that it doesn't. Yeah. That shouldn't be surprising that the seaweed tastes a little bit fishy, right?
And that seaweed has omega-3 fatty acids in it as well.
Now, that's an interesting statement to make.
Yes.
Do you know the soybeans have the omega-3s?
Mm-hmm.
All your greens and veggies? I taught graduate level nutrition years ago, and I had overhead, remember the overheads we had? So I had one that I would throw up to show people how much omega-3 there was in tomatoes, in cucumbers, in lettuce. It ends up that there are varying amounts of all of these essential fats put into the plants. You really don't have to worry about getting adequate ones if you're on a plant-based diet.
I'm not ready for it yet, but I'm prepping. Okay, sorry.
No, you're doing
I'm looking
fine.
for my tools. All right, so I'm going to start putting the noodles into the bowl, and it calls for either shirataki noodles or miracle noodles. I was going to use this for you guys to try, but the store only had one, and I needed more than one, so I went to my backup, these rice ramen noodles that we're going to be using today. But I wanted to point this out because this is one of my favorites. This tastes like real spaghetti. It is like chewy like the pasta, so I use this as my pasta when I'm making spaghetti. Sorry. There. This is weird. Okay. And it's only 5 calories per serving. One bag has 2 servings in it. You could also find shirataki noodles. I've tried those and they smell like fish to me, and I don't like fish smell at all. This doesn't smell. So I just open it up. You don't have to cook it. You just put it over some hot sauce over it or hot soup, and it's absolutely delicious. So I highly recommend it. At Publix, you can find it on the top shelf. I did see a clearance symbol on there, so I'm praying to God that they keep it. But they have it at Sprouts and Whole Foods and Fresh Market as well. And same as the rice ramen. Sure.
And Allison, the seaweed that you're using in there, is that the same thing as the snack packs of seaweed?
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. My very picky daughter, that's one of her favorite snacks, thankfully. So.
Good, because I will have extra, and you're welcome to take it to her. All right.
And let's see. We're getting the question that seems to be the popular question that comes up in every cooking class we do lately, Dr. Guthrie. So there's been a lot of concern lately with extra virgin olive oil. It's kind of, there's been a lot of different schools of thought. As I see you shaking your head, should people avoid it? Is it still okay in moderation? And someone also asked about culinary argan oil. I'm not sure. I've not heard of that, so I'm not sure if you, all right.
I don't know much about argan oil, but excuse me, the concern is about using or not using
About
extra
using.
virgin.
So Allison can attest, every cooking class we do, it lately seems to be a lot of people are not using olive oil anymore.
Really?
Yes.
I wonder why. It's supposed to be relatively high in the monounsaturated fats, right, which are not so much a problem for us. There should be a healthier one to deal with. So maybe I'm just ignorant. Someone asked me to define virgin olive oil, and I said olives that have only been squeezed once.
I like that.
So, that's kind of my way of thinking about it. Olive oil is a good oil, and it's better to have it, in my mind, so it's processed by just the squeezing. There are multiple processes that can be used to remove oil from plants, and one of those is to use solvents So they kind of smash it all up, put the solvents in to pull the oil out, and then remove the solvents and then leave the oil. So that process in my mind is questionable because there may be pieces of the solvent still in there. So the fresh squeeze makes the most sense to me. I know of no problems with using just plain olive oil. Now there are some oils in olives that are pretty amazing. One of them, they get these long names and I couldn't repeat it, I think, if you put it in front of me. But there's a unique oil within olives that protects against breast cancer. So, I mean, there would be a good reason to use it, right? I would think it would be helpful from that standpoint.
And we have a friend that works with us sometimes. She just went and became an olive oil sommelier. So I'm hoping that she'll be able to come and teach a class here because she knows a lot. She spent a whole week in New York learning about olive oil. So I'm excited.
My first experience with making olive oil was when I was on a walk with my grandfather, and we walked past an olive tree in Southern California, and he picked one and said, "Here, try this." They're terrible. They need to be done in brine, right? It just, those of you, your faces told me you haven't tried that. Your grandpa didn't pull that trick on you.
Your grandpa was trying to make it funny, I think.
Yeah, he was. That's right.
Okay, so next we're going to be doing the Asian cucumber salad, which consists of cucumbers and some red onions. And you need to slice the cucumbers pretty thin, and I could do that with a knife, but why if I can use a mandolin? And you got to be very, very careful with these because you can cut yourself. I've done it before, so make sure you use a glove, or there is an attachment that usually comes with it, which I don't see right now, so I won't go down too low on this.
And blood is not in the recipe.
No, it's not. So you want to just use your mandolin to slice the cucumbers really thin.
That finger's getting pretty close.
Yeah. Well, I got a doctor here, so I'm okay.
Sorry about all I do for those who kiss them. So.
All right, that's as low as I'm going. What? This, I bought it on Amazon, so I can share a link to that with my Amazon store. I will pass out a paper, and you can write down your email address, and I will send a link to that. And to our guests online, I have an opt-in, and I will send the recipes, some more vegan recipes and resources to you, plus my link to all my favorite kitchen gadgets. So
you're kind of doing the salad now. I had a little something to add about the mushrooms.
Go for it.
Is this a good time to do that?
Please do it, yes.
There's always something to learn in the whole area of nutrition. I find it fascinating, spend much of my life doing that. I have learned recently about something called a glucan. This is a type of, in essence, a sugar. It's not quite right. A starch, if you will, or a fiber that has some benefits for us. This is beta-1,3,16-D-glucan, and it's found in mushrooms. And there's a bunch of interesting stuff about this. Okay, here's one. The immune modulatory effects of dietary yeast, beta-1,3,16-D-glucan. So yeast has some of this as well. The mushrooms have it as well, which is why I brought these articles to tell you a little bit about some of the incredible things. So this helps to decrease kind of the immune response of people who have autoimmune disease, for example, allergies and those types of things. So that's very interesting. Dietary intake of mushrooms and green tea combined reduce the risk of breast cancer.
Wow.
And green tea. That's in Chinese women, and maybe it doesn't apply to you. I don't know. The association between mushroom consumption and mild cognitive impairment. Mushrooms actually protect against loss of memory, and it's probably some of these kind of very interesting fibers. This particular one talks about this 1,3,1,6 glucan, beta-glucan. So fascinating, the things that are hidden that we are beginning to discover. So this is beta-glucan supplementation on allergy symptoms and quality of life in self-described ragweed allergy sufferers. So again, the shiitake mushrooms and the little button mushrooms tend to be very high in this particular type of glucan carbohydrate fiber. Okay? Yes?
I heard that we should not be eating mushrooms raw. Is this true?
If you eat them, I am unaware of that. I know that if you eat them raw, you're likely to have some significant gas from them. But if you'll soak them first and get the little spores out from underneath, that tends to get a whole lot better. As far as I'm concerned, cooked and raw, as long as they're not poisonous, right? Just because it's natural doesn't mean it's healthy. They can kill you, right? So you want the healthy mushrooms. So that's to my awareness. I don't know everything. If you know something differently, or there are other scientists around who may know more about those things than I do, I'm certainly open to learn all the time.
All right. In the cucumbers, we've got, it's very high in water, and it may help lower your blood sugar, prevent constipation, and support weight loss.
So that's the fiber content in essence. You can see the green, that's got chlorophyll in it, so that's going to have some of that magnesium.
It's the pectin, the soluble fiber that's in it.
Pectin is a soluble fiber, that is correct.
Yeah. And here I'm using the Bragg liquid aminos. This is an alternative to soy sauce. And we are going to be adding our cilantro leaves.
Some people like cilantro and some don't.
Yeah. And it's funny, because either it tastes like soap or doesn't taste like soap. And I was in a class and I asked the students, who thinks cilantro tastes like soap? And one lady's like, I do, and I absolutely love it. And I'm like, that's a first. I've never heard that. I love it, though.
Our tongues can be trained.
Yes.
So what's the best way to wash your vegetables? Because everyone, there seems to be a different.
I know that they sell vegetable
Wash.
soaps, washes that you can,
Yeah.
a spray. And I think what you want to do is to get off any residual stuff from the environment that may be on it. You're not going to be able to take stuff from inside. Occasionally we'll hear, for example, lettuce that has E. coli in it. I can tell you the lettuce didn't make the E. coli. It was, the humans that were harvesting it or fertilizing it that did that. So treating it in such a way to try to make sure those things leave. When I was a kid, we lived in Japan. My dad did a stint in the Navy, Yokosuka Naval Station. And the first year we lived in a Japanese house with the paper walls. You can imagine my mother managing a couple of boys sticking their fingers through paper walls, right? Fortunately, the housemaid would kind of fix that.
Wow.
But one of the things I remember is the man coming by every morning, the farmer with his honey buckets. He'd have his kind of shoulder piece with a couple of buckets. He would go from house to house picking up human waste, and that's what he grew the garden. And the garden was incredible. I mean, it grew incredible green stuff. But when we brought it home, we put it in the sink, and Mom put in some Clorox and let it sit for a little bit, and then took it off. And of course, the chlorine would evaporate, and then we could safely eat the food. We didn't want to get hepatitis, right? And so there are things like that can come onto food in processing and otherwise or in storage. So
Also, a mix of vinegar and water is good. Like one
vinegar
part.
will kill just about anything in 15 seconds. Very good choice.
Here's another little gadget I love. It's my garlic slicer. So I'm just
Garlic
slicing up some garlic. And
That's faster than using a knife.
I know.
Gonna have to get me one of those.
It's a goodie. Okay, and then peanut butter. Let me grab. When I'm looking at peanut butter in the stores, you have to look at the ingredient list, and make sure it just says peanuts okay? And it's hard to find in Publix. I think there's 1 or 2 brands that has just peanuts in it, and it kills me. So,
So we don't like the oil floating to the top. The stuff that floats to the top is the unsaturated fat. The saturated fat, what they do if they're making the kind that doesn't separate, they take out the unsaturated fat, they add saturated fat back in, now it won't separate. Okay, so that's the good fats, so mix them in. Once you get them mixed in, keep it in the refrigerator, and then those fats won't separate out.
I also like to, I have friends that are really, I like to say high maintenance, but it's smart. They take their nut butters and they blend it up and at home and then put it back in the jar and it doesn't separate. I don't want to deal with all that mess. Can you imagine?
It doesn't separate as quickly. It will still separate if it's left on a shelf.
Yeah, but I don't want that big mess. But what I'll do is I'll store it upside down and then I'll turn it over, here and there. I don't have much real estate in my refrigerator for the peanut butter. And honestly, I haven't even had peanut butter in my house until this week when I bought this. My family was happy. They were like, "Oh yay, peanut butter's back." But so I don't use it that often, and I buy small amounts. My son's going away to college Friday, and I'm like, make your list of what you want. He added peanut butter. I'm like, you're gonna eat a peanut butter sandwich? And he hadn't done that since he was little. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, so I guess now we're peanut butter. I also found out he ate salad for the first time. And I'm like, when did that happen? He was at, he's like, team dinners. I was so hungry, and that's all I had to eat to begin with. So he's like, I loaded it up with dressing, but I'm like, well, at least you're getting some vegetables. That's good. Don't listen to the dietitian mom, but, listen to your lacrosse teammates. Okay, whatever it takes, right?
So most of the oil in the peanuts is going to be monounsaturated. So that's the stuff that you're kind of bringing up. You're leaving the saturated down inside.
So that won't get rancid?
So monounsaturates do not get rancid easily. It's the omega-3, omega-6, the longer one, the polyunsaturates that tend to go rancid. And they go rancid quickly. Light, air, time. And they very quickly start to change. Mm-hmm.
What about
What
organic?
about organic? I sometimes I maybe get a little rude in this question about organic. To me, the major is eat fruits and vegetables, okay? And the minor is organic. But, I joke, I've never had an inorganic apple, right? That would be made out of a rock. Right? So it's kind of, organic has come to mean some things, and apparently means some things from a legal standpoint as well. And I think those things are good. But there are very healthy foods that are not organic. Have you heard of hydroponic? So that would not be organic, right? Because they're putting nutrients that the plant needs in the water. I say look for the plant that has color and flavor, and then it has all the nutrients it needs. Those are the ones you should focus on. So to me, that's where I look. Not organic, but flavor and color.
And often the ones that are homegrown, the ones that are homegrown and hydroponic taste the best. They are the most flavorful.
Well, the closer you can get it to right out of the soil, the better it is.
And trying to find stuff that's in season so that you're buying locally and not having your food come from, another country, because that takes time for it to travel to get to your grocery store. Then it sits on the shelves for a while. So every day, every hour that is out of the natural habitat that it's being grown in, it's degrading. So you're losing nutrients from that. So going to farmers markets is really good, and just paying attention to what's in season is also great. And don't be afraid of using frozen stuff.
Frozen is a good alternative because it goes from the field into the freezer, and then the nutrition is stable till you take it out, as long as the stuff didn't thaw in the container when it was being moved.
No free ads. Oh, sorry.
I have who asked me that? Yes, I do have a hydroponic garden. That was like my first big purchase 10 years ago. Yeah, I will. I bought it from it's like a vendor that sells them, and I love it because I will kill everything in soil because I don't remember to water it, and every 15 minutes it will water. And you just put nutrients in it once a week, every time you fill up the water once a week, and then you have beautiful harvest. And the best part is I have a old coworker that she has one too, and I'm not patient enough to grow the seedlings myself, and she loves doing that. So I'm like, I will buy all the seeds and the rock will, and you grow our babies, and I'll just come and pick them up, and that's it. Yeah, exactly. And so we have a great relationship that way. But the tomatoes, oh my gosh, oh, they're so yummy. And it's so cool to just go out on my patio and I'm like, okay, here I'm gonna have a salad, and I could just pick it off of the tower garden. And when I was dating my husband, he's like, thought I was the coolest thing. He would go to work, he's like, she grows her own food. You could, they have grow lights that you can get, and you could grow it indoors. I don't have enough space for that. Plus, if like the leaves start to brown, I don't wanna deal with, I'm already cleaning up after kids. I don't want to deal with cleaning the leaves from the tower garden too. But I just keep it on the pool patio, but you can keep it inside. It's pretty big. I mean, the base is like that big. It's this tall, but I love it.
I saw one on Facebook and it was like 2 by 2. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, they have one that isn't used inside. We have the space. And I think it's
Explain about the miso and
when I put it in. What I did was after I was finished boiling and simmering the vegetables, I took it off of the heat, and then I put the miso paste with the water and sesame seeds in it to just kind of meld in with it, not overheat, and that gave it the flavor.
you don't boil it, you don't let it.
Not in this recipe, no. And the tofu is a complete protein, so.
I love to take it with
So
me.
do you have a process at home when you line up everything you're going to use in a recipe?
That's called mise en place, and that is what you should do. Because many times I get overzealous. I'm like, oh, I want to try this recipe, and I get all excited, and I think I have everything, and then I get to it, and for some reason I'm missing a vital ingredient, and I'm frustrated. So it's definitely smart to do mise en place, which means laying everything out that is going to be in the recipe, so you're sure you have it. It makes cooking so much easier too, because it's just like boom, 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 boom. And you know, these recipes, you can use them as a template. So say you don't like cabbage or the Napa cabbage, you can use a different type of cabbage. Or say you don't want to cut the cabbage, you could use a bag of coleslaw mix and just throw that in there to save you time. I just don't want cooking to be a barrier because of time. We can find shortcuts to help you get yourself in the kitchen and have some of this delicious fiber-filled food. And I'm garnishing it. I'm being fancy.
I like it.
Because we eat with our eyes first. You want to make sure it looks nice and appealing to the eyes. And you want to be mindful and not rush eating. I was talking with a adolescent girl, and we were increasing the fiber in her intake of fruits and vegetables, and she was showing me her lunch boxes, and they were beautiful. But her mom's like, okay, she's having a lot of gas. She said, I could tell you if you don't tell anyone. So I'm not using her name, okay? But I'm like, how fast are you eating? And she's scarfing down dinner, and that can lead to swallowing a lot extra air and, and having more gas. So, but, all right, here we go. Now we've got our soup. I'm going to save my ends.
So my kids are grown.
Uh-huh.
But I heard the public schools were using Lunchables.
Oh, yeah, they're terrible. Yeah. My kids, and the food's free. So, I am like, say to my son, what did you have for lunch today? Mozzarella sticks. And usually he doesn't eat, and he doesn't want to carry a lunchbox. So it's so frustrating. So when he comes home from high school, I'm feeding him lunch at home, basically. So, and when I was a dietetic intern, I did a week with the school, and they do have certain criteria that you have to meet, but you can have whole grain crackers in a Lunchable. You can have, and that would fit the criteria. So unfortunately, that is what it is. So pack your lunch.
Dr. Guthrie, I'm curious, what inspired you to write a cookbook? Have you always been in the kitchen?
I was hoping to be able to bring that up.
Good.
Good.
The first thing to recognize is that I'm really not a cook. I mean, I baked some cookies and made some cakes. I know how to do rice and oatmeal, and we eat pretty simply at our place.
You know how to make ice?
I know how to make ice. Yeah. So the story behind the cookbook goes like this. AdventHealth Publishing approached me and said, we'd like you to write a book. So I wrote the book with them over a couple of years, Eat Plants, Feel Whole. It was a little bit of a challenge writing the book because I had two audiences. Number one, the general public, who we're hoping will grow and learn from this. But coming from AdventHealth, I had the medical community as an audience. So everything had to be, you couldn't say anything without having a primary source. So I had to go back to the science, and it took a couple of years to really get it done. And we thought the product was very good. So the next thing they did was said, let's make a journal. So it allows you to make some changes and then kind of keep track of your progress. We try to do it in a positive sort of way. So you get points for each thing you do. There's extra credit available. But it included not just food, it included exercise, it included thankfulness, it included random acts of kindness, those types of things. Whole person care, if you will. Eat plants, feel whole, so the wholeness part. And beyond that, it says, well, we really should have a cookbook too. So the publisher actually, with some suggestions from me, and my favorite recipes in there come from a lady called Heather Leno. She's in the West Coast. She's obsessive compulsive about the kitchen. If you follow her recipe, you will have something that anybody will love. So I was very glad to get a large number of her recipes in the book. But otherwise, it's from gathered from good cooks around. So if it tastes good, it's not my fault. If it tastes bad, why, I'm sorry that we included it in the recipe. Hopefully you can find a way to adjust it or in the book. So it is a good source. It does have nutritional kind of facts about it, what's carbohydrates, vitamins, minerals, etc. And it's also marked for things. The cookbook was done, not just myself, but Angela Falls, who is a pediatric obesity specialist, and Sherry Flint, who's a nutritionist, head nutritionist at AdventHealth. So the three of us, and we've kind of got together on that. So I take credit for writing and encouraging, and kind of from the scientific stand of things rather than the actually preparing the food. My wife was in nursing education before I married her, and one of her colleagues is now a retired PhD nurse that lives up in Idaho somewhere. She keeps threatening to come down and make me show her how to cook. I think she's trying to shame me. Yes?
Do you have a group of doctors that you mentor on nutritional healing and so forth?
I teach in the family medicine residency here, and we're using something called the Lifestyle Medicine Residency Curriculum. So it's put together by the American College of Lifestyle Medicine to help train doctors in the whole really broad spectrum of lifestyle. So it's not just food. There are 10 kind of
Exercise, sleep, stress relief.
hydration. Yeah, that's right. We just put all those things together in order to be, it's a non-drug treatment. Mm-hmm. And it's powerful enough. I mean, I've seen it reverse diabetes, lower blood pressure, heart disease going away. So I'm excited to be able to, that's one of the reasons I came to Orlando, is so I could actually teach this to the young docs. More docs need to know it.
That's awesome. And it's a double whammy with AdventHealth physicians. Mm-hmm. We're also doing the Health Meets Food curriculum. I'm working with Dr. Falls.
Excellent.
And we're teaching all the residents in October the Health Meets Food curriculum, which is a certified culinary medicine specialty that Dr. Falls and I both have. Mm-hmm. And so we have the lifestyle medicine and the culinary medicine specialty actually. So I'm just so excited about what AdventHealth is doing to bring nutrition to the medical community.
There's a growing number of lifestyle medicine physicians. There is a board certification. The American College of Lifestyle Medicine now, over the last, I think as of 2 months ago, now has a seat at the table at the American Medical Association.
So incredible.
You know, trying to be mainstream. This is science. We need to apply science to the lifestyle part of things, for behavior change, for nutrition, for exercise. All of these things need to be put together and emphasized. That should be the foundation of treatment, right? If you have an appendix that's ruptured, you need a surgeon, not lifestyle.
I agree. But, you know, one, I noticed that a lot of hospitals have terrible cafeterias, terrible hospital food. And then the other thing is I've gone through 3 doctors trying to find a doctor who will help me with my diet, and they don't know anything. They don't know anything.
Doctors have a hard time learning more after they finish residency. It really takes a commitment, and they tend to focus. There is a lot. There are more and more physicians. The American College of Lifestyle Medicine now has approaching 12,000 members across the country. So we're growing. In the AdventHealth system, Monica Agarwal is a cardiologist that's plant-based. She's right here in Winter Park. We have Dr. Orman, who's a radiation oncologist. She and Dr. McKinsey, who's a gynecological oncologist, have a program called HEAL, where they teach nutrition, plant-based nutrition, to people with cancer who have cancer, to help them actually treat that in a more holistic sort of a way. It's alongside regular treatment, so it's not an exclusion of, but lifestyle is so important.
Isn't there a special class here? It's like a group thing.
Oh, Trevor.
She asked about a special class here. All together? We'll talk about that.
Yeah.
Doreen, do you want to tell them?
So the folks at home can hear.
I took the lifestyle medicine class.
There's your microphone. You're famous now.
Don't swallow it, get it closer.
I'm not used to this. The program consists of a lot of different things. The nutrition, they talk about exercise, mental health, etc. And there's been a special person that's placed a special place in my heart that helped me lose weight. I lost 16 pounds since July 1st.
You say 1, 6,
Yours truly.
6, 0.
1-6, yes.
Thank
It's been
you.
a pleasure to you.
I had victory, praise Jesus.
Yes.
Thank you.
That is awesome.
Trevor, I'm going to introduce Trevor Hicks, who's sitting here, my colleague. Trevor's going to talk about the Well Together program very briefly. This is the program Doreen was just talking about. So, Trevor?
Yeah, I figured I'd give Doreen a chance to tell you a little bit about it from a perspective of somebody that participated in it, and Dr. Guthrie. Dr. Guthrie referred her into the program for us, but I consulted with Dr. Guthrie and a couple of other physicians from AdventHealth when thinking up this program. We kicked off Well Together here in the building in January of this past year, and we'll be continuing it again next year. But basically, it's an 8-week comprehensive wellness program that focuses on 3 main pillars, which nutrition is a big part of that, fitness, and then behavior change or lifestyle change, like we've been talking about here. We used a lot of the components of lifestyle medicine when we were thinking and researching and kind of dreaming this program up. And yeah, ultimately that's the program that Doreen just graduated from here a few weeks back. But we do offer pretty much all of that here within the center. All of the different classes are either hosted here in the Nutrition Theater. We do a cooking class at the culmination of the program. But the conference rooms here next door is where we do a lot of the group style education, very similar to what you're hearing from Dr. Guthrie and from Allison here today. But then we also, a big component of it is fitness. So we partner with the Crosby Wellness Center. You have a gym membership through the entire 8 weeks, and you get to work with the exercise physiologists in there on your fitness too. So.
What is the program called?
The program is called Well Together, so we can put the link. Sorry. I was just going in front of people here, but I forgot we're on there. So the program is called Well Together. Jackie can put a link to it in here, and I can leave some brochures on the table over here afterwards as well. But yeah, so it's a program here run through the center. It does have a fee associated with it, so it's $249. It's a one-time fee that includes your membership to Crosby Wellness for those 2 months. That also includes 5 different behavioral classes with our licensed mental health counselor, 4 with our registered dietitians, as well as the cooking class. And then you get a one-on-one pre and post-assessment with the fitness team and supervised sessions throughout there as well.
Can they
So
use their HSA card or flex spending card with
it's
that?
a great question. So I've had that tried a few times. I've had a couple people be successful paying for it up front and then getting reimbursed with their HSA, as well as swiping and using
Perfect.
their HSA as well. The next one starts on September 9th. We are all but full for that one, but we will have another one starting in January as well. So
Do you have a wait list for January?
we do. We have a small wait list. I will say it's not close to being filled yet, but we're looking at kind of starting to expand the offerings next year. And I'll bring brochures so you don't have to necessarily write anything down. All there is on that brochure. There's a QR code on the back. If you're at all interested in more information after reading through the brochure, scan that QR code. It just puts in your name and your email and your phone number, and then you'll get reached out to by yours truly. So, other questions?
Well, let's let Allison talk.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are those
She's doing the good
chickpeas or
stuff.
garbanzo, Al?
These are chickpea garbanzos. It depends on who you're talking to. So we're doing the chickpeas, and I did 1 can chickpeas, 1 can garbanzo. So, and so what we're doing is we're making a chocolate chip cookie dough dip, and it's going to be a bean-based dip. So you're going to increase your fiber. It tastes really yummy, and I wanted to reduce the amount of calories and fat in it. The recipe originally called for all peanut butter, so I swapped out half regular peanut butter, and then I made some with peanut butter powder, and I used I mixed it with almond milk to go with that to make a paste. Put that together, and then we're doing some maple syrup as our sweetener and some cinnamon for flavor. I'm going to blend this all together. It's going to get a little noisy. Then I'm going to use these mini chocolate chips to fold into our dip. These are great if you have a family that has allergies, so this is allergy-free chocolate chips.
So did you just put enough almond milk to make it smooth?
Like a paste. It says, like, what does it say? I doubled my recipe, so it's different from what you're saying. So I think on yours it says 1 to 2 tablespoons. I'm a Rachel Ray cook when it comes to some of these things. I don't necessarily measure exactly. So I just make it into like a paste, like a peanut butter paste. So. Okay. I do. Luckily, I have help. Yes.
I just want to ask you, on the recipe it says vegan chocolate chips. It doesn't say how many.
Because I Rachel Ray it. I just whatever I think it looks good. So you decide at your discretion.
And they're dipped. It's a dip,
It's
right?
a dip, yeah.
And so you put your apple or your graham cracker in it and dip it. Yeah.
I'm looking for a bowl. Let's see. Put it in there, yeah.
Sprouts. I bought those chips at Sprouts.
Yeah. Publix. They have it at Publix as well. All right. This is not my food processor, so it's new to me. There we go. Oh, it smells yummy. You'll see here I have my bowl of scraps. That is for composting. So we have O-Town compost that comes and picks up all of our scrap waste. You can put anything in there that's organic. You don't want to put anything that's been touched with fat, like oils or anything like that, or any animal products. But they'll come by and pick that up and then turn it into really nutritious soil and either bring it back to you so you can have your own garden. I don't have my own garden, so you could donate it to someone else. And because the soil is really, really important for making sure that you have success in your gardening. Do any of you guys have a garden at home? No? Pots. Yeah. What herbs are growing well for you right now?
I have basil. I just redid it. sage, rosemary, and parsley.
Rosemary is pretty much the only thing I can keep alive because it's hard to kill. And mint too. And the other day I bought those. Have you seen those little? They're plastic containers that you can put your herbs in, and you put water on the bottom. And you can keep them in your refrigerator. I saw them online. I'm like, let's see if that'll work. And it was cheap enough, so I bought it. I put the mint in there from when I did the fruit salsa class, which was a long time ago. It's so green. It's not gotten bad yet. I mean, it's been like weeks. So that I'm going to invest in some more because I have some oregano and thyme at home that I don't want to have go bad. So that would be a good investment if you're not having your own garden. Who stole my chocolate chips? You stole them. You stole them. All right.
So just something that's happened at our house, these chocolate chips, they tend to have quite a bit of saturated fat in them. And so we discovered a really good replacement. They're called Bake Believe dark chocolate. Bake Believe.
Where do you find that?
And, well, I got it on Amazon.
Okay.
But what they've done is they've exchanged much of the fat. Because, to make chocolate chips, you have to have saturated fat so they actually stay up. And it ends up that inulin, which is a soluble fiber, the best for our gut, has a similar consistency if mixed with the right amount of moisture. So these chocolate chips have the dark chocolate in them. They have no added sugar, which is kind of interesting. And then they have the inulin and then a little bit of the fat.
I need to get that.
Bake Believe.
Bake Believe.
Bake
okay.
Believe.
Believe, B-E-L-I-E-F.
Like, believe it. This tastes great.
This tastes good, believe.
Yes. Yeah, we love to snack on them for dessert. I know I'm getting a high fiber dessert. I've got some in my lunch today. That is a giant bag. It lasts a while. Yeah.
Ah. Oh, my favorite. Good. Oh, yes.
We recommend eating like steel cut oats because there's so much stuff. Oh, don't eat oats. That's what they feed cows to. So what are your thoughts?
All right, hold this thought. So I'm going to repeat it.
We're going to take a picture with you.
Oh, with me?
You're the
Okay.
star.
Okay.
All right, cool.
And then will you repeat the question, Allison, or Dr.
Let me get a
Several
spoon.
months ago, maybe a couple of years ago, I had a lecture in the community, which was a little north of here. And someone came because they thought they were going to listen to Dr. Guthrie speak. Okay? And I thought you were Dr. Guthrie, they said. Well, I said, you can't do a much bigger insult. Okay? I'm not sure, what a surgeon is doing trying to talk about nutrition. I think mostly, and I don't know any of the details, but I can't imagine being anything
That's okay.
other but having a bunch of really
Those
good
are probably
marketers.
easier, right? Whoa.
And he just does what they say. Well, he may have lost some weight. I was at a medical meeting several years ago, and he was interviewed in a panel with like a PhD nutritionist and a PhD researcher from Scandinavia. He was quoting studies that the researcher had been part of, and he said, no, you're not saying that correctly. He was so, just in essence, proven wrong so many times. So that whole business, it is, and he pulls you into this video that goes on for an hour, and then he wants to sell you something. It's just a big marketing thing.
So wait, so
oatmeal is good.
Yes. So wait, so this guy was like saying this research is wrong to the guy, not realizing the guy on the panel
He didn't recognize that this guy was on the research team.
No.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And what about dairy?
We're a vegan class, so.
I personally know Dr. McDougall, or knew him, obviously, before he died. He was a good man. He was very forceful. And when lifestyle medicine first started, there was a lot of pushback from a lot of people. And he had the necessary force of character to actually and intellect to argue reasonably. So I appreciate it. He did mellow with time, and really appreciate him. For those that you don't know, Dr. McDougall did his medical school in Hawaii, and while he was in medical school, he was eating the standard American diet. He had a stroke as a young person, and it left him very weak. And one of his arms, I don't remember which one it was, probably left. And he said, I've got to do something about this. So he started to read the research and switched to a plant-based diet and became a doctor who promoted lifestyle as a way of treating. So avoiding strokes, but also helping people get better. So great story, and yeah, I really appreciate John McDougall and his work. Yes?
Do you think there's a lot of confusion about nutrition, sort of like how the cigarette companies were? There was a lot of confusion for a while, whether doctors were smoking cigarettes and all of that?
Yes, a lot of the things that the cigarette company figured out as a way to kind of slow the scientific process down with the confusion and articles that are biased and whatnot has been done by the meat and dairy industry as well. To me, it's very clear the preponderance of the evidence is that a plant-based diet is by far the healthiest. Okay. And maybe I shouldn't even say this on camera, I don't know. One of the foods that I think is probably one of the worst for us is cheese. The casein in cheese. In animal models, you give casein, you turn cancer genes off. You pull the casein away, and the cancer genes turn off. So that was one of the things that made a big difference in my life. So when I read that, I said, I don't need to play those games. Our body has good mechanism in it. Now, to be truthful, that is a problem when you have excess calories. It's not true when you have low calories. So there's something in being in the weight loss realm that protects our body against that particular part of things. But I just said no more casein for me. Casein has casomorphones in it, which attach to morphine receptors, so it tends to be addictive. It's really hard to give up. I know it was a challenge for me. That was one of my favorite foods. But when I found out about the science on it, I said, it's not for me.
Yeah.
Do you think both dairies are?
I would say the casein, for sure. The proteins in milk include half whey and half casein. Whey doesn't have the same effects. I mentioned earlier the ratio of amino acids, arginine, lysine, is going to be the same on all animal proteins with the exception of egg white, which doesn't have that same ratio. So I like to say, yeah, you can use egg whites, but the yolk's on you. Okay. I think that would be one of the safest things to do. And it doesn't have, eggs will have no fiber in them, but you don't eat just eggs, you have a meal. So if your meal is high in fiber, which is why I encourage people, I mean, if you're going to be having animal products, it's not that you can't be healthy and have animal products. That's not the point from my standpoint. It's that you need to have a predominance of plant protein to overcome the ratio. And I think we should stay away from casein completely. And that's the choice I've made personally with the evidence.
Have you found that there's been a big problem with added sugars, like from sugar, from beets and sugar cane and all of that?
Added sugars are a problem, and I think we have evidence that that is the case. Small amounts of sugar are good. Our body really does well on carbohydrates. You mentioned Dr. McDougall. One of his early works was the starch diet. And patients have picked that up, patients I've had have picked that up and done it and found it very successful. You know, we hear today, in today's world, stay away from carbs, they're bad. Well, actually, it's the carbs that have the fiber in them that are the good carbs. And carbs is what our body actually works best on. It's when we get it highly refined that we tend to have trouble. We're stimulating the insulin. We have no fiber there to balance it out. We're getting, our whole body is turning unhealthy somehow. Okay? So, yes, I think too much sugar is a problem. Now, the best carbohydrates are those that are released slowly. If you get table sugar, it's diglyceride. It has two sugars together, a glucose and a fructose. So your body takes those apart and then it uses them separately. Fructose is considered bad by many people. Fructose is in fruit. Small amounts of it are actually very good for us. It doesn't stimulate insulin like glucose does. So it's a good prime for a meal to have a little bit of fructose. The problem is when you get too much fructose, that fructose is much more easily turned into fat than glucose. And during my training, I was told that if you wanted to get the body to turn glucose into fat, you had to give about 5,000 calories a day of glucose. There's some steps in there that take quite a bit of energy to push that direction. Fructose is very easily turned into fat. And so the fatty liver has links to high fructose intake. So table sugar is half fructose and half glucose. If you want to get away from table sugar and use just glucose, you probably want to use starches. For example, potato is made of starch, which is glucoses all together. And I think that's why Dr. McDougall's starch diet does so well, because it's providing that long, slow release of the glucose molecules, which the body then prefers. Now, a lot of people are trying to get away from fructose, so they stay away from, for example, sodas with the high fructose corn syrup in it. High fructose corn syrup, if you look it up, is 50% glucose and 50% fructose. So it's about the same as table sugar, but the fructose has like 1.5 times the sweetness as the table sugar. So with that extra sweetener, they'll use less, you get fewer calories for more sweetness by using fructose. That's the logic behind using it. Of course, too much of it, a lot of soda can actually lead to problems from too high a fructose, and I think fatty liver is one of those where we have at least some evidence pointing in that direction. Some people will say, what about honey? Honey is about 50-50 as well, 50 glucose, 50 fructose, but it has some other sugars in it that lower the glycemic index, or how fast the sugar goes in.
Is fruit bad?
No, fruit is good.
I'm so confused.
The fruit, the whole fruit, and nothing but the fruit, so help me, okay? So the best way to eat it is the way God made it. And when you get it that way, it's good for you, which is why I don't want to say fructose is bad. Fructose is good. It's just when there's too much of it. Yes, ma'am?
I've been eating, I try to stay away from sugar, and I have stevia or I have monk fruit. But now a study just came out saying that it causes clots.
Monk fruit?
Monk fruit, yeah.
That I'm...
Monk fruit, but it's the, I did not pronounce it,
erythritol.
Yeah.
So erythritol is a sugar alcohol. And there are some questions about increased risk, especially with large amounts of it. I think small amounts are not going to be a big problem. So a lot of people will
lead to diarrhea too. The
sugar alcohols can do that when you get a lot of it. That's absolutely true. The other
it doesn't have to
thing
have
that people are using is agave.
Stevia, monk fruit,
and they'll think, well, I'll use this for sweetener because I want to stay away from fructose. Well, I looked it up in the database, and it's 83% fructose.
Yeah, I don't like it.
It's super high fructose.
Yeah.
Let's see. I did this with a group of college students here, and that was one of them that we put on the board. It's very close to 50-50 fructose and glucose.
Which one was it?
Maple syrup.
Oh.
Well, I think this conversation could go all day, and I'm not going to cut off, but I'm just going to release our folks at home with a couple housekeeping items. Thank you, everybody, for watching along at home. I put some links in the chat to Allison's website, to Dr. Guthrie's book's website, to our survey. So all of you in this room will also receive our survey afterwards. Please use that to not only tell us how today's class went, but Allison and I are already pre-planning for 2025 and see if we can get Dr. Guthrie back again. But if there's any other health topics like this that you would love a cooking class on, or a technique, or an ingredient, now's the time to let us know, because Allison and I are planning. So we'd love to get your input. And be sure to, everybody, check our calendar, our website. We've got the September cooking programs up there. There's still space in those. And we'll be posting our October through December ones in the next couple weeks. So follow our website, follow us on Instagram, follow us Allison on Instagram. There's lots of places to find us, but we want you to come back and keep continuing your education journey. We've also put a link to Well Together, which Trevor talked about in the link, and we've got some brochures for the folks here in the room. For those watching at home, if you come by the Center for Health and Wellbeing, there's brochures at the welcome desk. desk, correct, Trevor? Yep, so you can come by our welcome desk anytime, pick up a calendar, pick up a Wellspring, pick up Well Together. So thank you, Dr. Guthrie. This was just, I think we all learned so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, Allison, as usual. I think we've all have added the garlic slicer to our list today. That was a new one.
That was a new one.
Yeah, so again, we'll leave the room open for a couple more minutes, but we'll probably turn the mics off. But thank you all for coming. Thank you.
Thank you.